This is the 4th day of the March 90 7-day retreat at Springwater. At first, I want to talk about something that happens so easily and seemingly naturally with this organism, which is so conditioned to think in terms of right and wrong and good and bad, in terms of opposites. And then applying this way of thinking to what we call this work. We're not saying that it is good not to have thoughts and that it is bad to have thoughts. That conditioning is bad and a state of no conditioning, whatever that may be, is good. We're not saying that the good work is to drop the bad thoughts or the bad conditioning. And I'm not working well when there's thoughts or when the conditioning is operating. Can one trace down those mechanisms, those processes, as they operate even in listening to a talk? The mind sorting out or trying to get a hunch what she's saying that is good, that is bad, and how accordingly I should act in order to be good. What I should refrain from in order not to be bad. It isn't put that grossly. It's very subtle, but it goes on. And then there's discomfort with this whole thing. I want to feel bad, or worse, the more thoughts I see, the more conditioning is discovered or unveiled. So what is this work? And the work has its implications too, implying work is good for you, work has to be effort, sweat, blood, tears, and so forth. That's why the words are always dangerous. They're always aligned with other, or allied with other words and thoughts and experiences. But we do need words to communicate with each other, and we can. It's not impossible. Because we can always clarify, what did you mean when you said that? So, this work is to see what's going on, to see thoughts, their connections, the feelings, the emotions. The feeling, I'm bad because there's still so many thoughts. Or, to do good work, I have to let go of these thoughts. Or, what was another word? Give them up, renunciate, pleasure, and whatever. The pleasure that thought brings is not renunciation or letting go or giving up or overcoming or fighting. It's to reveal what's there as it is. And let the revealing or the seeing or the attention operate, which it does, has an action of its own, which is not in need of our conditioned responses. This is right, this is wrong, do this, do that, don't do this, do that. Let attention operate if it's there. When it's not there, it's not bad, it's inattention. It's so simple. Which brings to mind something which maybe, how many years ago? 16 years ago, I used to, a short anecdote taking place hundreds of years ago, where what was called a man of the people came to see inside the temple. He stepped inside the temple. And there was a man doing calligraphy. Maybe he had just done it, but the brush was close by in the paper. And he asked of this man inside, the man from the outside asked of the man inside, whom he probably knew to be a famous master, tell me or write down for me the highest maxims of wisdom, highest principles of truth. And man takes his brush and writes the word attention. And the man says, is that all? Don't you have a little more? So happily, the man with the brush writes attention twice. And the man of the people gets annoyed. And he says, I don't see something very profound in what you have written. So the master on the inside writes attention 3 times. They had it easy these days. The man says, what is this attention anyways? And the man says, attention is attention. We're not quite as sparse with words here. On the contrary. Someone just asked yesterday, all right, attention, awareness, but who is it that is aware? That's been my question for years, the person said. Who is it that is aware? And a question like this is interesting to go into. You could just say awareness is awareness. And that's all right too. Because implied in there is that we can all find out for ourselves. We may or may not, depending on the urgency of needing to find out. Urgency gives energy and gives attention. If I'm really urgently interested in something, there is energy and attention. It's amazing, but it works that way. So, who is it that is aware? Is an interesting question. Particularly in light of the fact that it's said all the time that awareness is awareness when there's no me there, dividing up the world into the world and me. To put it very simply. Because inside is also division. What I want, what I don't want, should be, shouldn't be, should become, I'm afraid of becoming, and so forth. All this me activity divides up myself, relationship, and the world. Divides me from nature, God from nature, me from God. Endless division through the sense of self. And we've been saying, in this awareness, There is no sense of self. There is no sense of division or fragmentation. There's only what is, and that is an undivided whole. So the questioner says, who is it that is aware? Because at this moment the body is alive. The senses are open. Maybe the question is already loaded. It's already asking for who, presupposing, assuming that there is a who, a me, some entity that is aware. Again, also based on our conditioned thinking that if there is awareness, there must be somebody who's aware. If there's something, trees, earth, sky, we call creation, there must be a creator. That's the same kind of arguing or logical thinking. But can there be awareness without the thought being there in the foreground or in the background? It is me that is aware. I am aware. The moment that thought arises, a lot of things arise with it. I'm doing well right now, for instance. I've got it. And good feelings about it. Patting oneself on the back. One has succeeded, one has got it, and the division has been accomplished again. A separation. And the future trouble in that seed of I have attained something, or I have got it, I'm good, because eventually this will flip. I don't have it, I'm bad. No good, a bummer, a loser, and so forth. So if there is a moment of awareness without division, why isn't it possible that this total organism, which is a incredibly highly evolved product of this long process of evolution, a brain that has evolved from a little cell, legs, arms, eyes, heart, liver, muscles, evolved, which why isn't it possible that in this organism evolved from past and actively functioning right now as a part of this whole universe, which is part of its evolution? Someone wrote that if stars hadn't exploded into millions of, or hundreds, I don't know what the number is, of elements, including radioactive ones, we wouldn't be here. So why isn't it possible that in this highly evolved instrument there can be awareness of the truth of no division, no separation of entities, be it human being entities or physical science, as we mentioned it in the first talk, now almost, or in the process of being superseded theory that everything is just particles pushing and pulling each other, which had an impact on our thinking. Now scientific theories in terms of fields, where one electron here may have or has an impact on 1 million light years away, not out of communication with each other, in communication with each other. Information affecting each other. Just because we feel as an entity with a will, and the will with its energies that it can arouse, and its fears of being lonely and abandoned, maybe forever, just because of those things taking place, it doesn't prove that this is a separate entity that is aware. There's just awareness. When all of these distracting and dividing functions calm down, don't disturb the vision, don't tie up the energy. Does that make sense? Even logically, intellectually. The question comes up again, well, but who is it? Well, one has to examine the question itself. Where does that come from? Is there a motive behind it? Wanting to hold on to the feeling of me-ness? Wanting it confirmed in some way or other? Because there's tremendous fear aroused by thoughts that I may not be, or I may disappear, or the selfness may be just a constructed fabric. The strands being endless memories with their connected emotions, memory immediately connected, physiologically, neurologically, electrically, whichever way, to the whole organism. When I insist that it is me that is aware, the person wasn't doing that, who was asking the question. I'm just taking that right now. If I insist that it is I that is aware, then what is the quality of awareness? It's already broken, isn't it? Fragmented, or divided, me and my awareness. And the wanting hasn't ceased. The wanting creates what I see. I see things in terms of what I want of them. I see people in terms of what I want of them for me, for my health, my betterment, my happiness, my advantage, my love. Or I may see people in terms of what I want to do for them. Recipients of my good works. It sounds cynical. I don't want to be cynical, I'm not. Sometimes people say, why do you always talk about the bad things or the negative things? I don't see them as negative, I see them as what is. It's how we live most of the time. And because we're so imbued with thinking positive, we have so little direct contact with the quote-unquote negative. We deny that. It's hidden under all the images of positive me's and you's. And this distorts our relationships and perceptions of each other and brings conflict. I want you to be something that you're not. I want me to be something that I'm not. I want to be for you what I'm not. So, can images become transparent? Not how will I bust them or get rid of them, but can they become transparently clear as we are relating, having talked about it at great length and depth many times? That's the beauty of talking about it many times over and over. Then suddenly one will see this thing directly. This is it, one sees it. It's a tremendous relief to see that an image is not the real person. I'm not an image or a bundle accumulated from the past and present and future projections. What I am this instant, I don't know yet. I haven't thought about it yet. think about it, I can make a little statement about it. But at this moment, it's just acting or being. And if I don't use my measuring sticks to evaluate it, then there's also tremendous relief and freedom. Energy released to look and be and let the looking function, which when it is not beset by the me vantage point, that action has intelligence to it, which again is not mine, is not I am intelligent, but there is intelligence available or coming into being. I don't know how that works. Whether it's always there and we just have to come upon it, or whether it comes into being at a moment of no division, no self-center distorting the perception and the action and the relationship. Then intelligence and also compassion comes into being. If I then begin to say, oh, now I am intelligent, now I am compassionate, then the trouble has started. Because out of that comes feeling of arrogance, or pride, or all kinds of structures, mental and physical, and they affect our relationship with each other. I'm better than you are, you're better than I am. So can one understand at whatever level, doesn't matter, that it is not a question of giving up something, renouncing, overcoming, but seeing, listening, looking, attending, seeing, being in touch with what actually is, without fear that this may hurt my image. But to wonder, how is the image affected? Or one may not have this question in advance, but one feels frightened. So what is it? What is frightened? What is going on right now? And that's what we come upon in the retreat. Fear of not being. The tremendous holding power of this imagery about myself, which is strung out in a story of my life, of my tribe, my family, my country, my group, my religious group or ideological group. And the future of that story is part of that story. What I will be, what I will become. Or if I didn't make it, what my children will become. If they didn't make it, maybe my grandchildren. Always hoping for becoming something. Which is fantasy, isn't it? It's thought and action. And creating a track of thinking, a track of acting and feeling, and creating a world that conforms to this track. If I'm set on becoming something, can I see the people around me? Test it out, not say no you can't, because the question seems to imply that. are the people either in the way of my becoming something, or they will be of help in my becoming something. And one could ask, what is the essence or the quality of this attachment to me and my story? Whether it's me alone or me identified with whatever. What's the quality of, what is the essence of attachment? What is it? When we say, I'm so attached to my story, to me, my life, my future. What do we mean when we say, I'm attached to it? What do we attach to? Actually, accessibly, so we can see it, trace it out, feel it. Yeah, this is what attachment is. Is it the bringing up or the arising of a thought of what I will be, what I will have, and the instant pleasant energies that flow from that thought, that inundate the body? Inundated, particularly after having had the blahs of not having thought about something energizing or exciting, and then this exciting thought coming up, what I will be or get, and the body suddenly feels good. Is that the same as imbibing a drug, alcohol, or cigarette, nicotine? In principle, it may not be as harmful to the body, to the organs, but is it in principle the same thing? The doing something occurring or seeking out something that will give good feelings to this body. And energy does. I don't know what all good feelings could be analyzed into. I haven't gone into that. But maybe somebody with medical knowledge could supply information what all is stimulated by thinking pleasant thoughts for the future or for the present, but it's still not here. The thinking is here, but what is projected is someplace else. And the question can immediately be asked, well, what's wrong with such attachment? And the attachment we're seeing is to those feelings, and therefore to the thoughts or the people or the things that bring them up, that arouse them. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it. We're trying to understand what's happening. And to what degree it's happening. Is it a thought arising and the good feelings and one sees what it is and doesn't keep wallowing in that thought? Because it's very clear that this thought limits or inhibits seeing what is here now, being open to the wholeness of this moment. That's what's happening. It's not wrong. It's not bad. Can we begin to drop those labels or evaluations because they sort of conclude and end an inquiry and leave one with bad feelings? And amazingly enough, one can also be addicted to those, to keep bringing up bad thoughts about oneself. Shameful thoughts, guilt-arousing thoughts, what one did or didn't do. And one may be amazed, why do I keep thinking that? But is it that the body is also addicted, conditioned to that? To anything that is habitual and a reoccurring pattern? Just because it has been a reoccurring pattern and presses to reoccur again? All of this can be examined, asked and looked, which makes drabness or boredom or depression discouragement or feeling of pleasure, not just something to blindly indulge in or experience, but to examine, to make a field of direct investigation. By having lived on addiction, the addiction of good thoughts or bad thoughts, for almost all our life, it feels that nothing else will provide energy. Because it's not just thoughts, it's actions, entertainment. As though this is all the energy that's available. One doesn't know of any other energy. Except that produced by pleasurable thoughts or actions, or negative thoughts and actions. Do the trees and the birds, the sun and the clouds and this greening earth depend on pleasant thoughts? For the energy to grow, to move, to green. I've often quoted this amazing statistic of one stalk of grass pushing through the hard ground, exerting an energy equivalent to over 400 pounds. One blade of grass. Because I may get into hot water. Someone may say, yes, there is already information pushing that grass. And is that the same as thought? I don't know. That's something maybe worthwhile examining, whether what is happening naturally on this earth and in the skies happens on an energy equivalent to the energy of thought. That a thought gets all of this into motion and supplies the energy. Because religion has said that it's the thought of God. But we won't go with any such belief. We may never find out the answer to that question that was just asked. But for oneself, one can find out to one's utter amazement that there can be immense energy when thought is quiet in its inspirational or depressing functions. When it's quiet, the brain is at rest, yet openly alive and alert. The senses open and alert, but not motivated by, I must get something or I must avoid something. That thought is momentarily quiet or in abeyance, slow down. At that moment, one may not even be interested in where that energy comes from. It's there, one is part of it. That is the energy of no division. Which seems inexhaustible. Not with its ups and downs as the energy of thought, pleasant thoughts and depressive thoughts. That is up and down. The other is either there or it isn't there. When the up and down of thought energy operates, the other is not there. And then it is like living in a small enclosure. No matter how vast one believes this enclosure to be, it's still an enclosure. Of me and the world, me and the universe, me and you. And one can begin to feel that enclosure, and feel it, see it, hear it, and wonder about it. The thought immediately maybe I want to break it, I want to be rid of it, but that's part of the enclosure, that thought. Wanting a better enclosure for me. It's not wrong, it's not bad, it's how we think. Or how thought occurs, because there is no thinker. That there is a thinker, that a thinker exists who spouts or creates thoughts is also a thought, isn't it? Right now. That there's a thinker in here who thinks thoughts. Right now. In looking at it, it's also a thought, isn't it? Or you could say, well, wait a minute, I don't know. I must examine this for myself. That's the best way. Not to take over. To listen to it maybe with interest, maybe it seems to ring true, but one has to find out, make sure for oneself. You could say, well, what is that oneself one is making sure for? It's a way of talking. Language is full of that. If one begins to eliminate all the oneselfs and I's and me's, one sounds queer. Remember when somebody said, it's nice to hear you say every once in a while, I, not always one. But it's helpful to say one because it makes it more general, less personal. Not that the personal is bad. We all know the personal. We're very attached to the personal. It has a lot of pleasures and then a lot of pains. Let's watch it. Somebody said, you're bringing up so many things. I'm used to just hearing one topic. Is that a burden to hear too much? This and this and this. Does that blur things? It's good when people mention these things because I need to know, I need to hear. Because it's the last thing that this is intended to do is to blur things. We want to see if we can clarify things together. Because topics are always interrelated, aren't they? It's just looking at something maybe somewhat differently, on a different level. Ultimately, all fits together into how we live, how we relate. That's another big topic. Someone asked, say something about relationship. We can't start that at almost 11 o'clock. But it fits in with everything we've said, doesn't it? With images we have of each other. Relating to what I want you to be according to my cherished image. And therefore not seeing you as you are from moment to moment. Rejecting what does not fit with the image and trying to change you so you do somewhat fit this image. The mind always at work, and if you don't fit the image, then sort of scanning for someone who may, and hitting maybe upon someone, and that person really fits the image. But one isn't aware of all of this, one just feels one has fallen in love with someone else. What is real relationship? By which we now don't mean images relating with each other or trying to change each other or match each other. That would mean meeting each other without image, wouldn't it? Or meeting the deer, the clouds, the trees, and this greening ground without image. And for moments at the time this happens, to almost everyone in the retreat, this one or that one, today or tomorrow, that as one person said, I saw the grass. I'd never seen grass before. I'm almost 50 years old. And it wasn't even grass, she said. So maybe so busy with imagery about each other, we've never seen each other either. And therefore, the relationship is somehow blurred, not real, not completely real. So what am I? What are you? What is the grass and the birds and trees? When I really don't know.
We will end here for today.